I've got my screen shared. So, hi everybody. My name is Graham McBain. I am the dev advocate here at CopilotKit. And so this is our webinar. We're going to be talking about UI UX patterns with CoAgents and LangGraph. So a lot of you have seen the sort of growth that's happening in agentic applications. And I think there's a lot of questions about how do you build great ones and how do you make it so that it's not just a sort of one-way interaction and how you can make it really powerful. So if you want to get early access to co-agent features, we've got a lot of new features coming out all the time. Next week, we're doing a really big launch. We're going to be supporting LangGraph Cloud, LangGraph JS, and then we've got our own cloud that's going to be coming out as well. So if you're not already in our early access group on Slack, please join this link. I'll leave this up for just a minute, but this is going to be a really great way for you to get started with co-agents. We're super excited to help. Like I've said, this is really new for a lot of people, as you can tell from the chat. And so you're not alone. If you're worried how to build this, what everybody else is doing, a lot of people are in the same boat, and we're really excited to help. So today we're just going to talk about how to understand these applications. What are the common UI UX design patterns that a lot of people are converging on? I'm going to briefly talk about some of the big players that have converged on those design patterns already, so you can see that really big companies are going in this direction. And then we're going to show you that you don't have to be a big trillion-dollar company to be able to build those same sort of experiences. You can build it yourself using just CopilotKit, CoAgents, and LangGraph Studio. And then not LangGraph Studio, LangGraph. And then you're going to be able to check out CopilotKit. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, give you that early access link again, and then open it up for QA. Can you guys give me a thumbs up in the chat if we're ready to go? And you just need one thumbs up, otherwise I'm not allowed to go. All right. So what are agentic copilots? Boom, there we go. Agentic copilots, you can think of them a lot more like a coworker than an employee. And so the way that I like to say this is when agents came out, everybody thought that autonomous agents were going to be the way, but it's really shown that those are really only good in a scope down scenario. And everybody is really going to this co-working agent working alongside somebody inside your application. And you can see that a lot of the big players are doing that. It makes the experience better. It makes you a lot more efficient at using an application. And with the technology, more importantly, it's available today. And even, from trillion-dollar companies to small startups, everybody can start using this right now, and it makes applications a lot better. The canary in the coal mine is really coding applications, but it's a lot more powerful, and every single application is going to have this sort of co-agent functionality. We're seeing this with a lot of the teams that we talk to every day. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of those UI patterns that we're seeing. And so obviously you've all seen the conversational interfaces. Nobody needs to some sort of new rehash that, but some new things that are popping up, these action suggestions. So this is like contextual suggestions in an application. Like if you're in a text editor and you see hey, do you want AI to rewrite this? That's really a good example of those contextual situations. And then there's also this ping pong dialogue. So you ask an agent to do something, an agent comes back and says, this is the plan. Does that look good? And then you say, yes, but let's adjust it here. And it becomes this really great conversational interface, like you're working with a coworker, to make the flow really natural and allow you to accomplish more a lot faster. The best practices for this sort of thing is you really want to clearly indicate what the AI is doing at every moment, because you don't want the user to feel like the agent has gone off and done something without help. And often these agents need help. They need to be able to check for understanding and make sure that the application is that it's going along the flow that you want it to go on. And we'll talk a little bit more about how LangGraph agents make that possible when you actually design that agent flow. But that's really, really powerful. User control is also really important. You want to be able to create great experiences for the user to accept, reject, add, or embellish different concerns that it's got. And then you also want to feedback so that the user can give feedback to the AI on how it's building. You can see a little bit of an example here in the chat. So like I said earlier, there's some big players that are doing this. Replit Agent and GitHub Copilot Workspace. They've both, like we said earlier, they're kind of the canary in the coal mines for this sort of application. They are showing you what the future is going to look like, but with every single application. And so we see this a lot as CopilotKit, because people are coming to us and trying to build these different apps. And that's not just IDEs. It's everything from consumer grade applications to enterprise applications. We've got a lot of really interesting things happening in the data transformation space. And so I think what's important to hammer home here is that if you're in this webinar, you're at the bleeding edge, you are exactly in the right spot, because huge companies are going this way of building co-agents, and every other company that we see of all sizes are doing it. So some use cases that we've seen a lot of is enterprise onboarding. So you've got these really large, really complicated enterprise applications, and the users have a tough time getting started, and they've got to go to a bunch of different trainings, or maybe there's an integration engineer. But now you don't have to worry about that, because you've got an integration engineer right built into the application that can actually guide you and help you get more use out of it. And those companies that have built that in are seeing a ton of stickier using, so that users are actually sticking around longer and using the application. They're becoming much more efficient and using more of the application than they had before, and that's increasing retention for that company. We're also seeing a lot of internal acceleration, and so if you've got a lot of people working in your accounting department or working in your HR department, you can actually either scale up that department faster with the same number of people, or you can have less people do that same job, because you've got a really powerful co-agent that's helping those employees do a better job. Finally, a really big use case we're seeing is knowledge bases. This is something that is really powerful, because you've got a ton of information about the company, and it's hard to understand for a user who to ask. It's especially over remote companies. If you're trying to get information out of people, it's hard to feel like you just need to go ask when you can actually just talk to this knowledge base. So, Tyler, if you can let me know if you're ready to give the demo, because I don't want to toss it over to you. So if you could just send me a quick note on Slack to make sure that we're in the right spot. Um, and I just want to talk about the demo we're going to be going through if Tyler is ready. So this is called Travelly. So this is an app for building an itinerary for your next trip. And you're going to be able to see sort of what it's like when it's just a user building an itinerary. So how they have to go and add different things manually to their trip. And then we're going to talk about how it's a Next.js application. We're going to be using the CopilotKit CoAgents, and we're going to be using LangGraph. But then you're going to learn how powerful it is to actually build a LangGraph agent. So Tyler's going to show off the LangGraph agent that he built to make this easier. And then he's going to show you how simple it is to integrate that agent into the front end UI with CopilotKit CoAgents. So I can
Yeah,
stop.
it looks like Tyler might be having some internet issues, so I can step in with a slightly different demo, but I can step in here and show.
Yeah. While you're getting ready, if anybody, we could stop there while you're getting ready for that. Ben, I love the comment that every airline in the world should use this. Absolutely. I mean, I always say that the best way to get anything done is to just ask your partner to do it. And that's what co-agents can help you do. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet either. I think the airlines, it would be so much easier if I could just say, I want to go here. Can you show me what's going on? And we're gonna see that really soon. Yeah. Okay. Kadu, if you guys are planning an RV trip, you can use Travelly. We'll send you the link to the demo, or you can get it set up and it'll help you build it. Actually, that would be great if you could share how that works. Are you ready to go, Ty?
I
Tyler
see,
just joined.
I see Tyler just joined. Tyler, are you good to present it? If not, I can do it, no problem.
We've got for everyone who's listening, the demo gods have spoken. So Tyler is ready to give his demo. Everyone on his block has internet except for his, and he had to run to a coffee shop. So we'll see how he's
Yeah.
going.
And it ties the opposite case. No one
Yeah,
has power in this area except for
of
him.
course, of
So the
course.
demo
That's
gods
okay.
are just. They're
Everything
given
balances
to.
out,
Yeah.
and they're on opposite sides of the
Maybe in the meantime,
the country.
some photos of what what my
Oh yeah,
surroundings
please.
looks like. So, and this is basically my backyard. Yesterday, had a surprise mega storm
Oh my
there,
God.
but I went to the
Wow.
only place with yeah, it looks like a disaster zone. There's trees falling everywhere, power lines falling everywhere. But and the one building in the area that has some internet and some electricity. Um,
Wow.
Brat,
but
there's going to be a guide for this travel demo. I was just answering a question from the chat. Sorry, Ty.
no, no, go ahead.
There will be a guide for following this demo. So once that's all up and running. So Ty's got the research helper up, and we can also just show two demos. So Ty, do you want to just run through this real quick, and then if Tyler you're ready, we can go there.
Yeah, we can
Um,
show two
I
actually.
see himself, Tyler. You can speak now, or not
I'm
forever,
here.
but all right.
All right,
Do you
awesome.
want to present or should I do it?
Do you want to go first?
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, so thanks, Graham, and sorry for my voice, but hopefully everybody can hear, understand me. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just want to emphasize, like the big picture here is really exciting. Very, very good time to be building. The way we think of interacting with the world in the knowledge work domain, has been people do everything and computers. And what we're transitioning to is you have this virtual colleague that's at your side. Initially, AI kind of took off. The vision that people immediately can recognize to is, AI does everything, and we're all out of a job. The good you want to think of it is that is not really transpiring. The current technology is not there yet. Maybe AGI is here in 2 years, who knows? But what you can do right now is these agents that are designed to work alongside people. Difference is that this yields something that is beyond a cool demo. We've all seen really cool demos, like, oh, you can get so close to what you would really ship, what you'd really give to a customer in 2 minutes of work instead of in days and days. You can't actually ship it. So it stays in that cool demo spot. But when you bring this back and forth interaction, you get it to the point where it's more than just a cool demo. And the chat interface, I think initially people are like, oh, is this a temporary thing? I think it's actually really here to stay because it's the conversational interface is how you communicate open-ended ideas to an intelligent entity. That's how we talk to each other, to your co-workers in Slack. That's a chat interface. This Zoom is kind of a audio, video chat interface. So I think a really robust interface for talking to an open-ended system to other people. So I'll just show this research helper. It's the world's best research assistant designed to help people conduct the research. And again, we'll see how we're shifting from this autonomous agent mode to something that's designed to work alongside a person in the application. So let's say I'm a researcher. I can let's research a life cycle of payments. And I know kind of what I want. I want the structure here to be, pre-hatching, and then hatching. I want then, youth, adulthood, and end of life, let's say. And by the way, this is an open source demo. That was going to show a different one that's also open source. But so sorry if you guys have seen this already. Um, but but you can check this out in our documentation. So I've gotten all this structure. I'm filling this up. I'm in control. I'm not just telling the agent, hey, go do it, right? I'm setting the structure here. I can add resources if I wanted to, if there's things I wanted to do. Again, it's not just designed for handoff and forget. But I can also now ask this intelligent agent to help me. So let's say like, help me with this research. And what we're first going to see here first is the shared state between the agent and the application. So these are not distinct systems. They're one unified system. Everything the agent can do, it can see, the page can see, and vice versa. Also see here, Agentic generative UI. So showed us all the things that it was searching as it was conducting the work. And then as the resources were getting filled in, this is getting filled in here as well. So application UI is representing and lets you interact with the agent state. And same thing here with the research draft. And we need like maybe better scroll support here for next time. But you see, it actually followed my guidelines here. And let's say we wanted to, I really want all resources to be academic. Do these follow that pattern? If not, let's delete the ones that don't. Right. So again, I've got this intelligent agent. I don't have to go and look necessarily. It's like, okay, delete these resources. Yep, looks good. Let's delete those. These are really not academic. And now we're only left with one. So like we could ask it, let's go do this other type of research and it'll find things that we want more. So see how it's just back and forth interaction. I can actually make edits here as well manually, and this will be reflected to the agent. The agent actually will even see the deltas in my edits to kind of see the direction I'm going in. So this is kind of the system. And I can actually show you how we build this in literally minutes of work live. So we're going to do this right now. Again, I wasn't prepared to demo, so please bear with me 1 second. I'm going to figure out how to share my screen. with the right stuff here. No, I'll just
Tyler, would
sorry?
you be ready? Tyler, would you be ready to give the travel demo? Because I know you've got the code stuff ready.
Yeah, I can go ahead and do that.
I think it's
I honestly I can do that too. How much time we have left on the webinar?
We have some time. I think like you showed the demo, so let's jump into the code at least a little bit.
okay.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
let's do that.
And I think they'll get 2 demos, which is awesome.
Yeah, you get 2 for 1. 2 for the price of 1. Second one is free. So yeah, I'm just gonna really kind of YOLO this. We have here, this is the agent. So well actually here, let me go to I've got running a local host application, and now it's just a kind of a quote unquote dumb React app. What an application would have looked like, a year ago, 2 years ago, where it helps you. It's a tool, helps you facilitate. You can have resources and all that, but you are actually doing the work. And then we have so one really simple thing on the one side. We have on the LangGraph side also really simple agents. You can see here the LangGraph Studio rendering. We have the chat node, which can go into search node to do the actual research online using a Tavili search agent, then downloading the resources. The reason download is actually the first one is because, again, it's designed to work alongside a person, and the person might have manually added resources to one agent to be able to go and use that. We have the delete node with perform deletion. We have these 2 separate nodes for this human loop interaction, right? Confirmation. And that's pretty much it. So like really straight, really simple, right? We have 2 really simple systems. This is really simple, vanilla LangGraph agent, no changes. This is a really simple React application. And we're going to see how we can combine these with like almost no work. So we have these, the CoAgent research canvas. By the way, you can see this, like I said, you go to our website. Oops. Why is this not working? Immigrants. I don't think our website is on. Can you guys still hear me? I think the Wi-Fi here has some issues.
Yeah, we hear you, but I'm sending the link in the chat. So it's just
But anyways, you should just go to our documentation here. Let me just try to do that. Okay, there you go. You go under LangGraph. This is docs.copilotkit.ai, which you can go to if you are copilotkit.ai. It's in here, open source. And my internet is being really slow, so apologies for that. There's a lot of people who have the same idea as me to come to this one place with internet and electricity. So yeah, that's the application, and we're starting with this really simple one. Again, going back to the code, let me make this all bigger, and you guys steal my keys, or don't steal my keys. We have 2 folders here. We have the UI folder for the front-end code, we have the agent code. Both of these really straightforward. And we're going to first start by adding to refresh my memory. There we go. So Paige, we're going to wrap the application, the relevant part of the application, with the CopilotKit provider. Now, this binds everything that's contained within it, in this case, the whole application, with this bridge to the Copilot system. I don't go into everything it provides you, but I'll just note here that we're agent locking the Copilot to this research agent. There's other modes you can use the Copilot with. You can have multi-agent mode, router mode, and then this is agent lock, just locks it to a single LangGraph agent in this case. And so now actually we already have this application hooked up to the agent, but you can't see it yet. So let's go to our main page and add Copilot UI. So CopilotKit ships to what we call Copilot UI, which is both headless UI, so you can just write your own full UI, but starting from the right primitives, or built-in UI components that are fully customizable. In this case, I'm passing CSS customization. We have actually really nice in our documentation. You can hover over each element and show you which CSS you need to customize it. But that's all we do here. We add a Copilot chat. Now, if we go back to our application, nice. So it's actually already working. And now we can talk to this agent. So that's all it took to now be able to talk to this LangGraph agent. Hopefully everything works. Nice. And so we have that. And now let's go to the research canvas and start adding the functionality that we needed here. And it's actually very straightforward. So first thing we're going to do is exchange the local React state that we're used to using with state that we get from the use CoAgent hook that we provide. So that's all it takes to change the state from local, normal use state React hook to agentic shared state with a lot of support for syncing it, which maybe if I have time I can go into if anybody's interested. But that's all it took. And now if I go to the agent here and say, write a research question about the life cycle of penguins, and I'll tell it, use your imagination, so it doesn't kind of go back and forth with me. And you see it just did that. So now it edited the agent state and it's reflecting the application. It took no work at all. Next thing we're going to do here is, let's say we ask it, okay, like, great, now conduct the research. So what we'll see here now is this endless loading indicator, which you guys building with agents are probably familiar with. It's okay in your demos. You can speed this up in your, the GIF that you share on Twitter. You can't really ship an application like that to users. And so one thing we're going to be doing here, and you'll see here that soon it will actually conduct the research, and we'll see resources popping up and the draft popping up kind of one at a time. But you see, this takes a while. This is not something that's acceptable to ship to users. Good. Like I'm even like wondering, is this broken? I want to check out the logs. No, it's still working. It just takes a while. That's how these systems work. Is this true? Yeah, it's still working. There we go. So now we have the resource popped up here and the resource. So these, you see why this is not something you can actually ship to users. And of course it does not allow for iteration and steering here. So next thing we're going to do is add this use CoAgent state render, or what we call agentic generative UI. So this is an additional kind of generative UI that is based on the current agent state, right? Which is in addition to the tool calling abstraction you're probably familiar with already. So if we actually go here, you see it's already backfilled, right? It's backfilling the state. Now the agentic generative for downloading this information. If you go to see the code here, it's so simple, right? It took no work at all. Have this hook, have a render function that takes the state of the agent. You get that as input. Also the node name and the status, if you want to use that, the status of the agent. And you just return any React component you want. So extremely simple, extremely versatile. So now this already has all this support for this. The next thing I'm going to do here is go in the agent code, and I'll go into, first I'll show you, agent. This is just plain LangGraph, nothing special at all. And really simple, straightforward agent. You see there's the nodes we saw before, the download chat node, search node, so forth. We're creating edges between them. One thing I wanted to do here is add support for streaming the state of the agent, even as it's executing. So if I, say like, let's, conduct more research, let's say. You see that even though I've got generative UI here, agentic generative UI now, I'll only see this. So you see this flashing because it's actually changing between nodes as we're going. It's not spending all the time in any one node individually. Anyways, what we need to stream here, the state of the agent as it's coming in. And if you guys are familiar with LangGraph, you know that the agent state only changes across nodes transitions. That you return the new state at the end of the node, but each node can run for 20, 30 seconds. So you can't just show the user that as it's updating, but state is the right abstraction. It's really simple for the developer. It's really versatile. State is the right abstraction, but okay, how do we mix these two things? CopilotKit has support for streaming the intermediate agent state as it's going in. So I'm going to look here for these CopilotKit config calls, and there's two types of things that we can stream as intermediate state. This first example you see here is we're streaming tool call arguments as intermediate agent state. Right, so in this case, this is the actual research. This is delete resources tool call that we're emitting. So that's for what we do there. We can manually emit state. So if we're downloading something, for example, right? We want to just manually, this is just normal code. This is not an AI tool call, not a tool call, but we want to manually update the state as it's coming in. We're going to add these. And then we have see another example here of, for example, extracting the resources. This is an LM tool call. As the LM executes, we want that to act as intermediate state of the agent. And I think I got most of these. Make sure. But you see, this is like very straightforward. And you can do this kind of on a case-by-case basis. You can figure out, do I want to add intermediate state representation here? Yes or no? And the LangGraph state is always the source of truth. This is kind of predicted state. Whatever you return from the node is always the source of truth. But this fills in the blanks for the agent as it's coming in. So now we did this, and I'm not sure if we have reloading here. So I'm just going to rerun this agent just in case. But now if I go and refresh this and say, help me research the life cycle of penguins, use your imagination, and also come up with the research questions. Hopefully the demo gods are with us. What did I break? It might be just that my internet is really bad. There we go. So yeah, we're seeing. I think it's just that my internet is bad, and it's good things. But you see, we're getting this intermediate state as it's coming in. It's streaming in one at a time. Yeah, it's taking a while to conduct this research. And yeah, that's essentially all it took. We just end with one last note going back to the agent, to the front end code. You saw that human in the loop there before, where there's the delete resource and it asks for confirmation that this is also extremely simple to do. On the front end, actually, since we were on the back end, let me just finish that over there. You need to add a breakpoint that's an interrupt on the LangGraph side. This is just a plain LangGraph behavior. You guys are probably familiar with command line interactions. So we add an interrupt after the delete node, and then the perform deletion now can take the input and decide what to do based on that. And then on the front end, we add another action, use CoPilotKit, which you guys, if you use CopilotKit outside of agents or CoAgents, you know that this works for the kind of naive or less customizable React agent at the core of the core CopilotKit. So we have the delete resources action here. We say the parameters it takes. In this case, it's the URLs that we want to delete. And we pass this render and wait function, which can return a custom React component that can call a handler when the user did something. So in this case, when the user click yes, we pass in yes, and when press no, can pass in arbitrary data there, JSON usually. And yeah, so that's all it took. And hope it all makes sense.
Thanks for jumping in, Atai. I appreciate it. We had some good
definitely.
questions. For anybody who's not paying attention to the chat, there's a few links that got shared about how you can actually get started with some of this stuff. And so make sure to check that out if you have questions. But Tyler, how are you feeling?
Feeling good. Can you all hear me?
We can, yeah. Let's go
And
check
sorry,
out
also
this
just see a question there if there's a guide to follow the notebook. Yes, so there's actually I'm building this live, just like I did now, like a recording of this on our documentation. So you can kind of set up.
And maybe let's do quick Q&A before we jump into the second demo and potentially make that optional for people who want to stick around.
Oh, does adding UX time increase time to execute agent action or use additional compute power?
Great question, Jerry. No, it doesn't increase anything. The agent runs as it's doing before. And it just, everything is reflected to user. Maybe if there's other questions, well, I can pull it if I have some time, kind of a diagram of how this works behind the hood, behind the scenes. But yeah, it does not add any more compute power or any more time.
Any other questions? I know there was one question that I'm sure a lot of people have. When one person asks, most people are pretending to not ask, which is when can they build this in JavaScript? And if you want to join the early access, we're going to have the LangGraph.js support coming out soon. This adds more complexity
And I
to
see,
the action. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there's both like chat, and there's a separate Q&A section in Zoom.
Oh, I see.
On the Q&A, I see the Copilot as the key takes my LangGraph input, sets up a fast API server, and links it to the front end. How can I introduce an additional layer between the agent backend and the front end? So actually, I'm curious to hear in more detail what you mean here. But I will say that we actually, the early access that the Graham spoke before, we're adding support for the full LangGraph ecosystem, the LangGraph Cloud, the open source agent protocol, LangGraph Studio. So you can skip the fast API layer altogether if you want to. That can still exist as a remote endpoint in general for other functionalities. But if you just are interested in the graph, it becomes now just pasting in a single URL of the LangGraph agent. So like really simple, straightforward. And we have this already working internally. We're going to be releasing it soon. If you're interested in early access, please talk to Graham, drop your email here or something. And we'd love to get you in the early access group.
Yeah, and through
So
this
thank you
group,
for
it's a
dropping
great
that.
way to reach us in general. It's an active channel. You can get, you can reach our engineers quickly and help you out.
There's another question from Jordan about talking about the backend for CoAgents. If you want to check that out in the chat, Atai.
Can you talk a bit more about the backend for CoAgents? I think in the docs I mentioned a Python server. I'm using CopilotKit successfully currently. I don't know if I can use the same backend with modification setup. Yes. So let me just pull up a couple of pictures here. I think it'll make things easier. Sorry, 1 second. Uli, do you have maybe the how does shared state work diagram handy somewhere? Right. Let me just show you the architectural diagram. Maybe you can look at it while I present this part. I think it's in some of the Figma slides, so you can. It might even be in this slide's appendix. But to just share the architecture diagram. So this is kind of how CopilotKit is built. We have the front SDK, we have the backend, the open source backend, which is called Copilot Runtime. And we called it that to not be confused with Copilot Cloud. Initially, it was called Copilot Backend, and Backend Cloud, confusing. So Copilot Runtime. And the Copilot Runtime can connect to sub-agents, soon to be directly. You can also connect, and of course, the Copilot Cloud, which has all these other features, but you can also connect to remote endpoints. The remote endpoints are services that you own and run, can be your own programming languages environments. We have initially support for Python and TypeScript. We're going to be extending this soon to other environments, other languages. And this can define a lot of things. Basically, everything you can define on the front end, everything you can define the Copilot Runtime, you can also define on the remote endpoint. So if you want to use the Fast API in order to add, backend context, backend actions, agents that you self-host, you can do that. But now with a new LangGraph ecosystem integration, you can also just connect directly to a LangGraph agent through either directly to Copilot Runtime or through Copilot Cloud. You can even just paste in a URL and it works. And you can paste in a local URL while you're developing. You can get from the LangGraph Studio, which is really, really cool because as you're developing, you want it on your computer, you can debug things more easily, iterate quickly. And then when you go to production, you can point it at a LangGraph Cloud deployment. So I hope that helps add color. And I don't know if Uli were able to find that picture, but if yes, I'm happy to talk through it as well.
Do you have one more question? If you want to read it, how does Copilot runtime scale with multiple actions agents? How does it know how to route to the proper resource?
Great question. So by the Copilot Runtime itself, the open source part, uses essentially an LLM engine as the routing engine. And that works it works well until you get to about 10, 15, maybe 20 actions, depending on the language model. It doesn't really scale that well beyond that. So as part of Copilot Cloud, we have an intelligent router that has dedicated logic for routing. It actually also learns from how people use the application over time. So short answer is, if you have under 15 or so actions, you should be good with just the open source and the decision making abilities over there. If you scale beyond that, then you can check out Copilot Cloud It's also free to get started. Actually, it's going to go in beta very soon. It's actually not live in our docs yet, but it will be going in beta in December 2nd, I believe. So less than 2 weeks from now.
Okay, we've got a bunch more questions here, but what I'm going to do is I'll save these for after the travel demo.
Okay.
And because we had a question, somebody wanted to ask about, or people did want to see the travel demo, and I know Tyler's worked hard on that. So let's get that live, and then so get maxed and Kaniska, we'll make sure to get your questions again after we do the travel demo. So Tyler, you feel free to take over and jump on in.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. Give me 1 second while I pull this up. Right, so then this. Alrighty. Cool. And can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. So basically, this is a really simple iteration of a travel application. We're going to co-agentify it to get a kind of agentic experience with a LangGraph agent that I constructed. And just to give a kind of quick high-level overview of the features in this app as it stands, is I've implemented some simple CRUD routes. So I can come in here, delete this. I can edit this one to have a lower rating. And I can add a new pen. Maybe I zoom in here to Bryant Park. And so I add Bryant Park, give it an address, 123 address. Very cool. Park, and give it like 5 stars. And that gets represented here. Now, what if we wanted to agentify this using CopilotKit? It's quite simple, actually. But building the LangGraph took a little bit. So I wanted to start uncommenting some code. The first place that I wanted to show off is setting up a remote actions endpoint. I currently have my LangGraph agent running. There's some setup there that's involved that I won't go too deep into, but basically I'm doing the fast API setup that Atai was mentioning. And then to look at the agent a little bit in terms of what it looks like, it is pretty simple. It has a chat node that you're interacting with the whole time. It has a search node that will perform Google searches. And then it has a trips node, which is blocked by an interrupt after to protect the perform trips node. This allows for things like human in the loop. So to start actually getting this agent into the UI, there's a couple of things we need to do. The first thing is set up the Copilot runtime to point to the remote endpoint that we just set there. Another thing is to actually, I am locking the agent here because I don't want any additional agents or LLM calls. And then I can uncomment out this sidebar here, save that. And then when we come back, we have our sidebar now. Right now, this is not actually hooked up and wired to our state. So I can say stuff like, what trips do I have? And it will respond with well, it might not respond at all, but we'll see. My internet's a little bit slow. Yeah, here we go. Currently don't have any trips. So, yep. So what if we wanted to connect these two states together? Well, we can do that using CopilotKit. In our trips here, I have a really simple state that is just using use state hook. And then I initialize the state with the default trips, which is how we see the trips that are existing right here. Now, if I wanted to co-agentify this, I can comment this out, and then I can add this. And then once I save that and come back into here, my trip is a little bit broken because I have a selected trip, but let's go ahead and reload this, and then I'll fix it. That was just some live reloading. The agent wasn't connected at that point. So now I can ask it, what trips do I have? And then it'll show those trips, just like that. I can say, delete my Paris trip. And it'll say that it deleted it. It is hallucinating this because I have set up a human in the loop interaction here. And because I haven't set that up with the code, it was hallucinating that it wasn't able to perform that. So now what if we wanted to perform human in the loop, which is specifically get the user to approve or deny creation requests? We can do that with a couple of things. First, I want to render intermediate state here. I'm also going to uncomment some suggestions. And then finally, I have these actions, which call render and wait. And what these do is, like Atai was showing earlier with the research canvas, they take a prop for a handler, specifically a status or a handler. That handler will then handle these actions. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Come back in here and say, I want to plan a trip to New Zealand. We focus on kid-friendly Lord of the Rings filming locations. And I just want to make sure that we got all of the code commented out that we need to, or commented back in, I should say, which we do. So I can go ahead and hit enter on that. We can see that it's searching, which is the intermediate state rendering that Atai was mentioning. And now this is basically intermediate state rendering plus human in the loop. So what this is doing is it's, I've gotten a couple of results from the search, and now it is building out a trip based off of those results. And so it's doing this, and then once it's finished, we can actually click add. We can review what it created here. So it added in Harry Feet Waitomo for Hobbit film location tour, Adoras, some other stuff. And then I can click add. And then it'll give a quick overview. It's currently, again, my internet's a little bit slow, but it'll give a quick overview of what it did. And then we can look at our trip and we can see some of the various locations that it added. One thing that's kind of weird is, or not weird, but one thing that we forgot is we actually need lodging. So to the trip, can you add some kid-friendly lodging as well to the various locations? So we'll give that a second to search the internet. It's doing basically for all of the different locations that it added, it is searching for hotels using Google Search API. And then it's going to come in here and actually do this. So one thing that's really interesting that I want to highlight here is you may notice that the UI actually doesn't have any integration with Google Maps. I created a tool to use the Google Maps API in Python, but the LLM is dictating what to search, what data to use from those searches, how to organize it, descriptions for that. And these are all features that I didn't implement. These are just kind of things I get for free for using a CoAgent that has the Google Maps tool, which is pretty cool. And then this is currently adding all of the stuff, and it's showing what it's adding and what the trip will look like once it's finished. So I can click save on that. The trip will update as we can see here. So we have like our motel here, we have a lodge, all this cool stuff. Yeah, and so that's a pretty good example of a travel application. There will be a guide for how to actually build this coming soon, some tutorials, and we're also expanding the documentation for CoAgents. So I will stop sharing there, and we can start answering some questions. Does that sound good, Graham?
Sounds great. This is awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate the patience with the internet.
Round of virtual applause for getting that out there. There was a good question. So we can jump back into the Q&A. But again, like Tyler said, that's going to be available for everybody. And actually, before we jump into the Q&A, I just want to finish going through the slides, and we could just clean up, round out this presentation. So let's go ahead and jump back into that really quick. My screen sharing is paused for some reason. Okay. Stop sharing. Go.
Try it again.
No. It's not working.
I think we can, like, we're almost at time, so we can just run the Q&A, like keep it open.
That's great. We had some good questions. So,
and I also just want to call out Tyler, like really awesome demo. And I think the really cool thing here, as you guys saw, is like, nobody designed an app specifically for Lord of the Rings locations and did a bunch of back work for figuring out where these are. Like this is something that exists in the intelligence, and it's a really open-ended question. You cannot predict this in advance, and it's the type of thing you would often want to do. So if it's not Lord of the Rings, that's kind of a really cool example. But in a normal trip, you're like, okay, what's a good place if I have kids that are this and this age, or if I'm traveling with my wife, or if it's a business trip, right? These are open-ended things where I think there's a process you need to go through to reshape your mind to use conversational interfaces for open-ended ideas, because people oftentimes immediately reach out for, okay, let's use a conversation interface to do what I can already do with buttons, right? Delete this, add that. But it's not about that. It's about the open-endedness of what you can communicate with language. So there's a reshaping that needs to happen for all of us, but I think it's going to happen really, really fast because we're all going to start using applications to do this all the time. And again, great time to be a developer. And honestly, if you're looking to build these type of things, I would really encourage to use these types of tools in your day to day, because the more you use them, the more you're like, well, why in my work application that I'm working on, why don't I give my users the same abilities? Yeah, just a high level note.
Yep. And so Kadu had a really great question, which about adding prompt field to add buttons for other features. And so yes, we do support this. You can add custom buttons within the prompt. So if you've got a prompt library that you want your users to be able to access while they're using your application, you can absolutely add that library as custom buttons within the user experience. So we do have support for that. The Trip app is not available yet, but Tyler's working on it. He's dealing with internet, but it should be out. I would be willing to bet it's out before Thanksgiving for US folks. That's next Thursday.
And follow us on Twitter to get everything right as it comes out. And join the Slack channel.
There's a PR out for that demo right now. I want to jump back to GitMax.
We might even merge it by the end of today. So you unless there's some big trouble not to. But yeah, so we'll send it out also on the email. I think that posting see if we can do it today.
I want to GitMax asked a question: is there a way to add Langsmith tracing with just the chat, so without agent runtime?
Yes, great question. So you mean like you don't use a LangGraph, you just use the kind of core Copilot, and you want Langsmith tracing there. Is that correct? Right. Yes, you can do it through the LangChain adapter. So you're probably right now using an adapter for a specific model provider, OpenAI or Anthropic, Google AI. You can use the LangChain adapter, which is in our docs under the LM providers. It's one of the options there. And then through the LangChain adapter, just do the plug it into Langsmith the normal way. It takes a couple lines of code, and yeah, it should all work.
That's great. And then one other question was, what are different ways to expose the app to business users? What type of authentication do we need to support to host inside a web page or as a bot or on a desktop or on a phone?
Good question. So right now you have to kind of own all of that yourself. And you can do it. There's enough interaction points for you to own, logging in, logging out, validating, disvalidating. You can pass in the credentials and present things in the back end or in the front end based on the user's credentials. We are also working on Copilot Cloud side support for things like SSO. If you want your own users to be able to SSO log in into the Copilot, into your application, and get access to the Copilot. So that's something that's going to be built kind of out of the box. And that's generally a philosophy, by the way, too. The common things, building drop-in solutions for, but it's all fully customizable and like easy, like effortlessly customizable. So if we don't support it yet, you can just do it yourself.
Cool. And then one other question, which I know we answered in the chat, but I just want to make sure for everyone who's not reading, which is how do I let the agent search my internal PDFs instead of reaching out to the web? Do I need to add a tool query to my vector DB? Any examples?
Yeah, so actually I saw the question. I added a ticket to our linear to add an example of this. I don't think we have a public example for that right now. But it's exactly what you said. So the action, that tool call, instead of going to Google Search API or to the API, it goes to a knowledge base service, and there's obviously what goes behind the scenes there with vectorization, all that. It is so we also have same with the knowledge base. We have a protocol that we're actually going to be releasing publicly soon, a knowledge base protocol. So you can build your own custom thing that does whatever it wants. But for the common use cases, we're going to slowly add one by one. And that's one of the big ones, obviously, like just documents, vectorize them, embed them, and switch over that. So that's also going to be kind of a built-in part of the platform. So, quick difference on actions versus risks, Git versus tasks. Yes, good question. So this kind of gets to the inside of Copilot core, which we didn't talk about, but CopilotKit has actions, which is what you define to interact with the outside world. It's a tool that you give to the agent. It can exist on the front and the back end, third-party systems, your remote endpoints. And then there's also Copilot Task. And the Copilot Task actually, maybe it's a bad name. We need to maybe rename it, but it's basically just a programmatic way to interact with a Copilot outside of the chat. So there's two ways you can interact with things outside the chat. There's headless UI. So anything you can do with native UI in the chat, you can make your own UI. It doesn't have to look like the chat. You can look like whatever you want it to look like. We have even folks that made it a voice UI, right? So chat. So that's kind of one option there. But if you just want programmatic to initiate something and you want to maybe constrain it, in this scenario, you only want to have these actions available, this topic available. Copilot Task helps you. It basically gives you this full programmatic control over initiating interactions with the Copilot.
And then there was that question about allowing users to upload documents to the UI. And I think, we've got multimodal support coming soon is the answer to there, right?
Yeah, it's multimodal as part of it. It's again, the short answer is kind of like before. Right now, you can do it yourself. You just upload infrastructure for upload documents and pass in the uploaded URL or identifier or whatever that is to the agent as an input in the action or in the agent state. And then in the agent, you can just use that identifier as you want. We will also, this is a common use case, add support for that natively into CopilotKit. So right now, you can do it yourself. Takes a bit of work. Soon, it'll just be part of the platform.
Got it. This is great. I think, we've got 5 minutes left. I always like to give people some of their time back. But really, really appreciate it. Oh, sorry. Nathan's got a question here. Do we support multiple LLMs? The answer is yes. So yeah, you can hook up. I think in that image that Atai showed, we show hooking up to multiple LLMs. And runtime is really great. But soon we're going to be having LangGraph Cloud, which is going to handle a lot of things as well. So we'll check out an upcoming demo on that. If you haven't already, make sure to reach out. If somebody can add the link to the early access again in the chat, just to make sure that we've got it before we jump out here. But it looks like we got a bunch of people joining, which is great. I'm going to be reaching out to people. I've got my my calendar link, so anybody who wants to book time, if I can answer any questions you've got and help you get up and running, there's that early access link if you want to join that. But we're super excited about the new releases we have coming out soon for CoAgents, the LangGraph Cloud support, the LangGraph JS support, and then CopilotKit Cloud is going to be coming out soon. So I just want to thank everybody for joining. This has been a really great webinar. We've got a ton of great questions. It's really wonderful to see. Oh, Ben, it sounds like you and I have a meeting coming up soon. So great. But it's been so fun to get to meet all of you and learn all of the things that you're building on top of CopilotKit and on top of LangGraph. And we're just really excited to support you. And again, I want to reiterate what Atai said. This is the best time to be a web developer. There is so much opportunity to sort of remake how every application in the world works. These the CoAgents that you're seeing on coding tools are just the canary in the coal mine. Every application is going to have a CoAgent built into it, and you all are here, so you all are here at the exact right time. And thanks for joining. This has been a really great webinar.
And thank you, Graham. I just want to, there were two questions about them. I just want to quickly answer them. Multi-agent support. Yes, you have multi-agent two ways, both through the core CopilotKit router that will decide which agent to hand off things to, or you can just have multi-agent inside your LangGraph and that just handles that. And then the second question was about LangGraph configs. So when you initialize the LangGraph in the application, you see this if you check out any of the code, you pass in the LangGraph object. You also pass in a function like a config generator. So you take the current properties and return a config based on that. So every agent to make it short, has the graph and the config you can pass in.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We're 1 minute. We'll make sure to not go over because everyone's otherwise the rest of our meetings will be late all day. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks,
Sure,
everyone. Thank you, Graham.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Theo. Thanks, Sam.